The scent of truffled lamb still lingers in the marble hallway, yet the crystal chandelier above seems to shudder. Why, after all these years, does Spencer's laughter still sting like champagne on a cut lip? My grandfather's 1962. Omega, scratched, plain, mine, beats against my pulse. One glance from Dad. Not the usual disappointment, but something raw. Regret? Pride? Can a tarnished second-hand timepiece silence decades of unspoken rules with a single, quiet tick? I'm Madison Clark, 28 years old. I run a multi-million-dollar tech company, but I still ride the subway to work. My parents never understood why I chose simplicity over status. Every Thanksgiving gathering, I'd show up in jeans while my cousins arrived in designer suits. Spencer mocked me once. "Still on the subway?" he sneered. But that night my watch caught my father's eye. His look changed everything. Growing up as the daughter of Richard and Grace Sterling meant elite schools, summers on Martha's Vineyard, and every advantage money could buy. Dad built his venture capital empire from the ground up. Mom came from old money, her family's name etched on Manhattan's skyline. They gave me everything, but also demanded I prove myself on my own terms. Unlike my cousins, who were content living off family wealth and connections, I was determined to build something real. After Harvard Business School, I shocked everyone by turning down a six-figure job at Dad's company. Instead, I took an entry-level role at a struggling tech startup. Dad was confused but quietly supportive. Mom was devastated, convinced I was throwing it all away. My cousins, especially Spencer, thought I was crazy, I remember. "You could be driving a Porsche by next year if you joined Uncle Richard," Spencer sneered. "Instead, you'll be making coffee for some nerds who'll probably go bankrupt in 6 months." But here I am. Years later, that scratched Omega still ticks, and so do I. I just smiled and told him there were more important things in life than driving a Porsche. He looked at me like I had spoken an alien language. The startup was everything I had hoped for. Fast-paced, innovative, filled with brilliant minds working together to create something revolutionary. I thrived in that environment, quickly rising through the ranks to become product manager within 18 months. That was where I met Gerald Clean, a 65-year-old veteran entrepreneur who served as our company advisor. Gerald became the mentor I needed. While my father had taught me about business in theory, Gerald showed me its practical application in the tech world. He was brilliant, kind, and completely unimpressed by status symbols despite his enormous wealth. He drove a 10-year-old Toyota, wore the same 3 sweaters in rotation, and lived in a modest home. Yet he had founded 3 unicorn startups and was respected throughout Silicon Valley. "True wealth is invisible, Madison Clark." He told me once, the elevator doors hiss. Marble walls glow like moonlit ice. Madison Clark's pulse clacks louder than the vintage Omega on her wrist. Her phone buzzes. Unknown. She taps. A grainy video flickers. A shadowed face, voice distorted, growls. "Your dead mentor's treasure isn't a watch. It's a key. Midnight. I want it." Click. Black screen. Heartbeat in her throat. Key? Gerald's watch is just a watch, right? Rain scent drifts through lobby vents, metallic, urgent. She glances around, only silent fountains and the rustle of potted fig leaves. She palms the leather band. Feels warmth, not cold metal. A key. Hidden where? She remembers Gerald's laugh, gentle, teasing. Real doors don't have hinges. The city outside pulses with 8 p.m. traffic lights. Midnight is 4 hours away. She steps onto the sidewalk. Drizzle beads on her blazer. Subway grate exhales steam that smells of copper pennies. She boards the downtown train, fingers locked around the strap. Window reflection shows her own wide eyes. Rich girl turned founder, still afraid of her parents' disappointment. The Omega's second hand sweeps steady, indifferent, like the mentor who never judged. She recalls the Thanksgiving gathering last year. Grace Sterling slicing turkey, voice smooth as cashmere. "Darling, your startup sounds darling, But when will you settle down with someone appropriate? Richard Sterling, chuckling. You know, we could place you at Lang Capital next quarter. Real money, real respect. She smiled, swallowed gravy, and said she was happy. They looked relieved, not proud. Steam coils above the tracks. She clutches a pole, knuckles white. A stranger's elbow nudges her bag. Jogs memory. Gerald once slipped a tiny screwdriver inside her birthday gift, joking, "Every lock needs the right persuasion." She flips the watch over. Caseback glints an almost hidden notch. Was that always there? She never checked. She steps off at Canal, rain now slashing sideways. Neon signs bleed over wet pavement, red over gold. She ducks beneath a bodega awning, flips the watch again. With a thumbnail she pries. The back clicks open like a locket. Inside rests not gears, but a wafer-thin microdrive, no wider than an eyelash. Treasure isn't diamonds. It's data. She feels the hush inside her skull. The same hush when Klein Dynamics servers hummed alive for the first time. Her heartbeat slows. Gerald planned this. A taxi's headlights paint her silhouette gold. Midnight ticks closer. Whoever sent that video wants this chip. But Madison Clark, independent, stubborn Madison Clark, wants answers more. She straightens. Rain beads, then rolls, down her cheeks like quiet applause. She whispers to the city, to Gerald's ghost, to her future. I will prove worth can't be bought, sold, or stolen. It must be earned. Watch snapped shut. She steps into the streaming avenue. The key is hers now. My parents respected my privacy, though my father occasionally checked in on my company's public filings and seemed increasingly impressed by what he saw. The annual Hayes Thanksgiving gathering was a tradition started by my grandparents and continued by my father and his brother, my Uncle Richard. It was held at my parents' estate in Connecticut, a sprawling mansion that had been featured in architectural magazines. Every year, the entire extended family gathered to eat, drink, and inevitably compare achievements and acquisitions. Uncle Richard was my father's younger brother, and there had always been a competitive tension between them. While my father built his fortune through hard work and strategic risk-taking, Uncle Richard married into wealth and managed to parlay his connections into a senior position at a prestigious financial firm. Their children reflected their values. My cousins, led by Spencer Lang, measured success by the brands they wore and the cars they drove. Family dinners inevitably became showcases for their latest status symbols. As I prepared for this year's dinner, I thought about Gerald and what he would say about my anxiety over facing my family. I could almost hear his gentle laugh and his advice. Let them have their Porsches. You are building something that will last. With that thought in mind, I dressed in my usual style. Dark jeans, a simple white blouse, minimal makeup, and Gerald's watch. I ordered an Uber and headed to Connecticut, ready to endure another evening of subtle and not-so-subtle judgment. The Uber driver whistled softly as we pulled through the ornate iron gates of my parents' estate. "Nice place," he said, navigating the long winding driveway lined with perfectly manicured topiaries. I nodded, watching the familiar Georgian mansion come into view, its limestone facade glowing in the early evening light. I always felt a strange mix of emotions returning here. Madison Clark stands on the threshold, key cold against her palm. Rain scent rises off the gravel, and the chandelier flickers. In the mirrored wall behind Santos, a second Madison appears, 30 years older, tailored blazer, eyes that have seen too many boardrooms. The glass whispers, soft as leaf rustle, "This is the compromise you'll make if you stay." Santos smiles, oblivious. Older Madison mouths, "Remember why you walked away." The mirror shudders back to polished mahogany. Only the thud of her pulse remains. Grace Sterling's champagne flute catches the firelight when Madison steps into the salon. Conversations pause, just long enough for every gaze to slide from her plain leather tote to the heirloom watch glinting at her wrist. Richard Sterling tilts his head, curiosity disguised as warmth. Spencer Lang lounges by the piano, smirk already loaded. Madison inhales cedar and orange zest, the Thanksgiving spices her mother uses to mask the scent of competition. A cousin she hardly knows curls a lip at her scuffed boots. Madison smiles, gentle, unruined. Inside her head, Gerald's voice repeats, "Let them have their Porsches. You build what lasts." Later, in the candlelit dining hall, silver clinks on crystal. Spencer Lang boasts about 250 exits. Uncle Richard leans forward, cufflinks flashing, asking with velvet challenge, "So, Madison, still bootstrapping?" The table quiets. Every air waits for her blush. Instead, she sets down her fork, meets her parents' eyes, and speaks one quiet line about profit margins, community grants, no inherited capital. Silence stretches like cooling taffy. Richard Sterling's eyebrow arcs, but something softens in Grace's gaze. Outside the tall windows, wind flips a scarlet maple leaf. Madison feels the mirrored warning shimmer against memory. Compromise or courage? She chooses the leaf. Rain hissed across the windshield as Madison Clark stared at the limestone mansion. One breath, then a shift. Behind her eyes, a flash. Gray sidewalk, spongy with October leaves. The scent hit. Pavement, petrichor, childhood, a pair of small sneakers beside hers. 9-year-old Madison whispered, "Will they ever see me?" Her mother's perfume, something crisp, floated down. "Stand up straight, people are watching." One leaf crunched underfoot. Snap. The memory dissolved. Now the gravel crunched under her own boots. Same rhythm. Inside, Grace Sterling glided over, navy silk catching light. "Darling," she hummed, air-kissing both cheeks. Her gaze pounced on the faded tote. "I mailed you that Celine coat for Thanksgiving. You'd have looked right at home." Madison hugged tight, felt the surprise stiffen in Grace's shoulders. "This is warmer, Mom. Real pockets." Her mother's laugh tinkled. Thin crystal. "At least the blouse is cashmere. Come, Spencer Lang just closed another unicorn round." Of course he had. The applause for Spencer always arrived within seconds. Madison's wins took quarters. She followed her mother through double doors, cedar and orange zest mingling with gas logs. Clusters of airs clinked crystal flutes like wind chimes. Across the salon, Richard Sterling straightened his tie. "There she is," he boomed, arms wide, scent of the same cedar cologne from every childhood hug. He squeezed once, solid, certain. "Long drive?" "No traffic." His brow creased. "You look thin, honey. Working too hard?" Silence pulsed as every eye measured her plain coat against their tailored glitter. The same old question hung. She chooses applause or her own path. Richard's glass slips. Amber whiskey arcs. Freezes midair. The room flips upside down. Camera fisheye spins. Reveals hidden drones. Every guest wears an earpiece. The clink. The laughter. All looped. Madison's heartbeat is the only live drum. Father appears on a wall-size screen. Simulation complete. Subject authentic. Red record light blinks. She wasn't at Thanksgiving. She was inside their audition. Rain scent crawls in. Leaf rustle under her boot again. 9-year-old Madison once waited on the same porch. Same cedar, same orange zest, same hope. Will they see me now? Tonight the porch is marble. Tonight the question is sharper. Did I just pass or escape? Rain taps the skylight like a metronome. Madison breathes. One inhale, cedar smoke. One exhale, champagne fizz. Amber's hug is silk-scented sunscreen from Capri. "You die over the sunset," Amber giggles. "Pink like your cheeks." Madison feels Gerald's watch tick. Slow, guilty heartbeats. The room pulses. Rolex flash. iPhone screensaver turquoise ocean. Each cousin louder than the other. Villas, jets, second villas. She smiles in the correct places. but her pulse races to tomorrow's call with ShelterLink. 10,000 homeless job seekers waiting on a single line of code. Crystal flutes lift like church bells. Forks hover. Amber's laugh rings, then stops mid-crystal. A hush rolls across marble floors. Heads tilt toward Madison. Grace Sterling lifts her glass. A toast. To my daughter. The room exhales, expecting the script. Investment round. Forbes cover. Instead, Grace's voice softens. You built something that matters. The words hang, fragile, surprising. Madison's breath catches. Amber's manicured nails brush Madison's sleeve, whispers, You're glowing. For a heartbeat, the chandeliers feel like stars, not spotlights. Sirens wail beyond glass doors. Madison's phone vibrates. ShelterLink, urgent, server crash. Screens go blank in the kitchen, no Wi-Fi. Grace's smile freezes. Madison glances to Gerald's watch, 11:11. The encrypted voicemail icon pulses red. She taps once. Static. Then her father's voice. Your mother is behind the blocked trades. Gasps echo. Amber's hand flies to her necklace. Spencer Lang steps in from the balcony, tucks crisp, eyes stormy. He meets Madison's stare. 1 heartbeat, 2. He lifts the watch. Time slows, glint of steel against candle flame. He hurls it over the railing. Flash of silver, free fall, splash in the black Hudson. Silence screams louder than the water. Sirens strobe scarlet on the yacht far below. Madison leans over the rail. Rain on her lashes. Amber clutches her arm. Will we dive? Gerald's watch sinks. The voicemail still loops. Mother? Trades. Only one way to find out if the truth is waterproof. The water calls. We stepped into candlelight polished so bright it hurt. The hallway smelled of rosemary and old money, like the whisper of vault keys. My father matched my stride. You're quiet, he said. Rain ticked distant windows. Only tired, I lied. End of quarter storms. He glanced sideways. Saw your pro bono venture capital pitch in the Times. His voice fell below the murmur of valets. Smart. Generous. For once, pride leaked through marble cracks. I let the compliment settle, sudden and warm as brandy. Grandfather would have done the same, he added. He paused, tasting something bitter. So would I, though Richard thinks I've forgotten the ground floor. Doors swung. Chandeliers dripped like frozen waterfalls. 24 places shimmered. Destiny weighed in silver grams. Find me wedged between Spencer, his grin sharp as oyster shells, and Madison, diamond pendant flashing lightning. Thanksgiving had begun. Course 1, scallops scenting the air like ocean squeezed into china. The family took their marks. Wine rose crimson. The script unfolded line by practiced line. Aunt Pamela leaned in. Madison, that necklace steals the room. New? Madison fingered the stone. Thomas sealed the Peterson merger with it. 12 cushion-cut carats. City jeweler to the stars. Smiles glittered. Mother inclined her head. Speaking of mergers, Richard, Westfield circling Chicago? Uncle Richard dabbed his lip, linen sweeping like brushstrokes. Final stages. Spencer handled diligence. Flawless. Spencer lifted one brow, slow, lethal. Saltwater mist drifted through open terrace doors. Then silence. Forks suspended mid-air. Father's napkin slipped, revealing monogrammed silk, the same cloth that once wiped debutante tears. My phone buzzed once. Encrypted. ShelterLink server crash. Data gone. Spencer's eyes held mine over crystal. Had he vanished the cloud? Or had Richard? And why did Father smile now? Calm, secret, trap-door calm, while rain scent curled around gold leaf walls. The clatter of silver stops. The chandelier dims. Once, twice, then holds. A cobalt pulse flares inside Madison Clark's vintage cuff. She feels the soft leather flex. Her breath snags. Across 3 crystal towers, Spencer Lang's grin falters. Beeswax trembles. The cuff screen whispers, "Your algorithm just erased the Westfield fortune. What did you do, Madison?" Silence ripples like spilled wine. Every gaze pivots to Spencer. His modest shrug looks rehearsed. "Just doing my job." He clears his throat, too careful, too fast. The acquisition boosts revenue 30%. Pacific Rim expansion follows. Uncle Richard preens. "Kid gets his instincts from me." Madison's father lifts an eyebrow. Measured silence. Richard did bankrupt his own firm before marrying Westfield royalty. Mother diverts. "Justin, dear, Goldman treating you well?" Justin straightens silk. $4 billion Saudi deal. I fly Riyadh next month. Corporate jet. Rain whispers against patio glass. Course 2 arrives. Roasted beets, goat cheese, burnt sugar walnuts. Forks tinkle. Madison eats slowly, rain scent curling around gold leaf walls. Spencer leans in. "Still in that Soho co-working closet? We own the Flatiron floor now." He whistles low. "Rent must murder profit." "It keeps us lean, alive." "How many employees?" "More than 3. Spencer shares quick eyes with Richard. "Startups, 90% crumble. You've flipped odds." Madison smiles, blade thin. Aunt Pamela leans forward. "Darling, wearing yourself thin for peanuts?" Madison's cuff pulses again. Hidden code. Silent bomb. Only Spencer sees. His fork hovers. Did he plan this trap? Could Richard? Forks clatter. Candle smoke rises like old verdicts. Mother lifts crystal. "Speaking of Westfield, Richard, Chicago still moving?" He smiles, calm. Trapdoor, calm. Madison's pulse roars in her ears. Westfield gone. Fortunes rewritten. Spencer's secret, or her own finger on the trigger. "Darling, you know, if you ever need help, the family is here for you. There is no shame in admitting when it is time to try something else. I'm sure your father could find a suitable position for you at Hayes Development." I felt a flash of irritation but kept my expression neutral. "That is very kind, Aunt Pamela. But we are doing fine." "Of course, dear," she said, patting my hand in a way that suggested she did not believe me. "I just worry. A young woman should be thinking about stability, building a future. Look at Madison. She and Thomas just purchased that lovely brownstone in Brooklyn Heights." Madison beamed. "The renovation is costing a fortune, but it will be worth it. We are putting in a wine cellar and a home theater. You should come see it when it is finished, Madison Clark. Maybe it will inspire you." I smiled tightly. "That sounds nice." "You know," Uncle Roger chimed in from further down the table, "entrepreneurship is all well and good, but there is something to be said for the security of an established firm. My college roommate tried the startup route. Bright fellow had what seemed like a good idea. Sank every penny he had into it. Now he manages a branch of Bank of America in New Jersey. Several family members nodded sagely at this cautionary tale. "I remember when you first announced you were starting your own company," Spencer Lang said, cutting into his perfectly cooked salmon as the main course was served. "What was it again? Some kind of data analysis for small businesses." "That is right," I confirmed, taking a bite of my own meal. "Seems like a limited market," he observed. "Small businesses do not usually have much budget for that sort of thing. Now, if you were targeting enterprise clients," he trailed off, shaking his head slightly. "We have a mixed client base," I said simply. Spencer Lang was not deterred. "I just wonder about the viability long term, especially in this economy. Venture capital has dried up considerably since the interest rates went up. I thought about the $20 million in funding we had secured last quarter and the offers from 3 major VC firms that I was currently considering. We manage." My father cleared his throat. "Madison Clark's company is doing quite well, actually. I have been impressed with their growth metrics." Spencer Lang looked surprised, then quickly recovered. "Well, good for her. It is important to follow your passion even if it means certain lifestyle adjustments. Madison picked up on his tone immediately. Yes, I admire your commitment to simplicity, Madison Clark. It must be so grounding to live like regular people. I caught my father watching me, something unreadable in his expression. My mother looked uncomfortable, clearly torn between defending her daughter and avoiding any hint of family discord at her meticulously planned dinner. There is dignity in living within one's means, I replied evenly, something Gerald always emphasized. Gerald, Uncle Richard asked. Gerald Clean, I explained. He was my mentor. He passed away last year. Oh, the tech guy, Spencer Lang said dismissively. I read about him. Made a fortune in software or something, right? Lived like a pauper despite being worth billions. Kind of eccentric. I felt a surge of anger at hearing Gerald described this way, but kept my composure. He believed that wealth should be measured by impact, not possessions. Spencer Lang snorted. Easy to say when you have billions in the bank. I bet he still flew private and had houses all over the world. Actually, he flew commercial and owned one modest home in Palo Alto, I corrected. He put most of his money into his foundation for educational access. Well, to each their own, Spencer Lang said with a shrug. But there is nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. Life is short. What is the point of success if you cannot show it off a little? As conversation shifted to Madison's upcoming trip to Paris, I felt the weight of Gerald's watch on my wrist. I thought about his quiet confidence, his genuine interest in people regardless of their status, his belief that true success was measured by the lives you improved, not the possessions you accumulated. The contrast between his values and those being expressed around this table could not have been starker. My reverie was interrupted by my cousin Amber, who was describing her new Mercedes in loving detail. The interior is completely customized. Took 3 months to get exactly right, but when you are driving through the Martha's Vineyard, it is worth it to make the right impression. Spencer Lang nodded in agreement. Image is everything in our world. The right car, the right address, the right connections. It all signals your place in the hierarchy. He turned to me with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Speaking of which, Madison Clark, I noticed you arrived by Uber today, still taking the subway around the city, too. The table fell momentarily silent, all eyes turning toward me. The question hung in the air, its condescension unmistakable. I saw my mother's embarrassed expression, my aunt's poorly concealed pity, my uncle's smug satisfaction at his son's pointed query. But it was my father's reaction that surprised me. His attention had shifted from Spencer Lang's face to my wrist, where Gerald's watch was partially visible beneath the cuff of my blouse. His eyes widened slightly, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. He was staring at the watch with an expression of stunned recognition. Spencer Lang, misinterpreting my father's reaction as embarrassment on my behalf, pressed his advantage. I mean, there is frugality, and then there is unnecessary suffering. Public transportation in New York can be so unpredictable, not to mention the types of people you encounter. I opened my mouth to respond, but at that moment my father found his voice. Is that what I think it is? My father asked, his voice cutting through Spencer Lang's commentary. He leans closer. Warm candlelight glints off the crystal, and suddenly the dial stutters. Tiny white lines of code flicker across the face like lightning trapped in glass. I know those loops. My abandoned college script for predictive heartbeats. But why? How? Is it scrolling inside the watch my father once called childish tinkering? My skin pricks. Rain drums against the windows, carrying the metallic scent of the city. He doesn't notice the glitch yet, but I do. This isn't just a $2 million heirloom. It's living proof my quiet code survived inside Gerald's first prototype. I taught him once. He never forgot. The watch now ticks with the literal rhythm of my past. Dad's voice cracks the silence. Madison Clark, where did you and Gerald cross paths? 20 pairs of eyes pivot. Trust fund mockery dissolves like sugar in coffee. I inhale the leaf rustle of tension. In a campus lab at 3 a.m., I say, I was soldering boards. He asked me to debug his dream. Scoffs become stillness. Candle flames tremble. My mother's lip quivers. My uncle stops chewing. I feel the subway's distant rumble under the townhouse foundation, like the heartbeat linking mentor and student. One rule, I continue, tracing the brushed steel. Use it, share it, never lock it away for image. Spencer Lang swallows hard. The Mercedes story wilts. Madison studies my wrist like it might vanish. Dad lifts his glass, eyes softer than I have ever seen them, to the woman who coated her own crown jewel, before we even noticed. Each one was entirely handmade by Kline himself. The movement is based on a revolutionary design of his own creation. Collectors have been searching for these for years. Most are in private collections or museums. Uncle Richard was staring at the watch with new interest. $2 million on your wrist. You should have that insured, Madison Clark. It is, I assured him. Gerald took care of that when he gave it to me. He said it was the first thing he ever created that truly mattered to him. Spencer Lang had recovered enough to join the conversation, his tone completely transformed. I had no idea you were close to Gerald Kline. He was a legend in the industry. He was more than that, I said quietly. He was a friend. He believed in what I was building when few others did. Which was what exactly Uncle Richard asked. His earlier dismissiveness replaced by genuine curiosity. You have always been rather vague about your company. I took a sip of water, considering how much to reveal. Gerald had always advised strategic transparency. Perhaps it was time. We developed a proprietary algorithm that helps businesses optimize their operations through predictive analytics, I explained. We started with small businesses because they were underserved in this space, but we have expanded significantly. We now work with several Fortune 500 companies, 3 major healthcare systems, and the federal government. My mother blinked in surprise. The federal government? You never mentioned that. The contract was finalized last month. I said, we will be implementing our platform across multiple agencies over the next year. It is our largest deal to date. How large? Spencer Lang asked, unable to contain himself. I met his gaze directly. $900 million over 5 years. Another stunned silence fell over the table. My father was looking at me with open pride. Now, my mother appeared completely bewildered. But you still live in that tiny apartment in the city, she said, confusion evident in her voice. My breath froze in the marble quiet dining room. The rain scent drifted through cracked French doors. A leaf rustle outside sounded like applause. $900 million over 5 years, Mom. Yes, the contract was sealed last month. Their forks hovered midair. Grace's lip quivered above her untouched Chardonnay. Richard's silver brows climbed toward the chandelier. The turkey, once king of the table, now looked tiny. Madison Clark, the whispered failure, was, on paper, a billionaire. But wait, what is a billionaire who still rides the subway? Who still rents a 2-bed walk-up, eats street falafel, walks in sneakers? Is it all a lie? Could a spreadsheet outrank generations of legacy fortune? I pushed my chair back. Let me show you. The lights dimmed as if Martha's Vineyard itself held its breath. I pulled the plain linen satchel from under my seat. Inside, a single flash drive glinted like moonlight on water. I slid it into the wall-mounted screen. Spreadsheets vanished. Rows of glowing pinpricks appeared. Every clinic, every bodega, every warehouse we had rescued from collapse lit in electric green. My cousins' names blinked next to businesses their own trust funds once foreclosed on. Spencer Lang's jaw dropped. He saw the logo of his bankrupt childhood candy shop shining bright in Brooklyn. "That's impossible," he murmured. "You foreclosed on us in 2010. I tilted my head. I bought the note, forgave the debt, rebuilt the store, all anonymously. I never needed your gratitude. I needed my own." Grace began to cry. Richard reached across and gripped my hand, trembling. "Madison," he whispered, "I never knew." The room smelled now of cedar, old money and salt from Grace's tears. I closed the drive. "I'm still taking the subway tomorrow," I said, "but maybe you'll finally take me seriously." The clink of silver against china slowed. Warm rain scent curled past the hurricane-shuttered windows. One by one, they looked up, like guests who had walked into the wrong house. Grace dabbed her eyes. "Explain something. If you're worth $1 billion, why haven't we seen a yacht, a driver, a private jet?" I folded my napkin once. Perfect square. "Because that's how you measure things. Not me." Silence ballooned. No leaf rustle outside. Not even the ocean dared breathe. I reached beneath the table for the soft velvet pouch Spencer had ignored beside his plate. Inside lay Gerald's final gift, an old wristwatch, glass-scratched, leather strap, faded chestnut. I held it up. The chandelier hit the cracked crystal and scattered fractured light like broken promises. Spencer laughed. "A garage sale relic." I didn't answer. I fastened it. Tick. First heartbeat. Tick. Second. Then I turned the dial. The room, Grace's tears, Richard's trembling hand, Spencer's curled lip, froze. Sound died. Colors inverted. The turkey drained to gray. Portraits aged 50 years overnight. Only the watch moved, tiny hands spinning backward, faster, until the numbers blurred into whispers. I blinked. I was 8, crouched inside the vineyard linen closet, flashlight under my chin, VR goggles strapped too tight for a child. The golden dining room before me had never existed. It was my homemade simulation of a future I hoped my parents would live to see. I had built their triumphs, their recognition, every crumb of applause. Then I had saved the file on a boot drive no bigger than my thumb. I tasted dust. I felt the cold floorboards against pajamas printed with tiny whales. A single tear slid onto the scratched watch crystal and woke the mechanism. Tick, tick, tick forward again. The lights snapped bright. I was back at 35. Fork in mid-air time resumed. No one had noticed the freeze. No one except me. Spencer leaned away, already planning tomorrow's apology. Richard studied me with new curiosity. Across from me, 8-year-old Madison stayed hidden in the dark closet of my memory, goggles cooled by tears. The watch was lighter now, as if that child's hand still slipped it into my pocket like a secret mission. I touched the cracked glass one last time. "This," I said, "is the only fortune I ever needed." As the evening progressed, I found myself grateful for its quiet presence on my wrist, a tangible connection to the mentor who had shaped not just my business philosophy, but my approach to life itself. As the dinner plates were cleared and coffee was served, the conversation inevitably circled back to my watch and its previous owner, Uncle Richard, who had been uncharacteristically quiet for the past several minutes, finally voiced what many were clearly thinking. "I still cannot wrap my head around the fact that Gerald Clean was your mentor," he said, stirring cream into his coffee. "He was notoriously selective about his time and investments. How exactly did that relationship develop?" All eyes turned to me once again. Even the staff paused in their duties, sensing that something significant was unfolding at the table. My father leaned forward slightly clearly, interested in hearing the full story himself. "I met Gerald at Innovate Tech, the startup where I worked. After graduation, I began. He was brought in as an advisor during a particularly difficult quarter. The company was burning through cash and our product development had stalled." "I remember that company," Spencer Lang interjected. "They were acquired by Google eventually, right?" I nodded. "For $300 million, but at the time we were on the verge of collapse. Gerald came in and completely transformed our approach. He had this ability to cut through complexity and identify the core value proposition. That was his genius." My father agreed. I heard him speak at a conference once. Remarkable clarity of thought. He noticed that I asked different questions than everyone else in the room. I continued. After one particularly contentious meeting, he asked me to walk with him to get coffee. We ended up talking for 3 hours. By the end of that conversation, he had offered to mentor me. "Just like that?" Uncle Richard asked skeptically. "Gerald made decisions quickly when he saw potential," I explained. He told me later that he recognized something in me that reminded him of himself at my age, a certain way of looking at problems. My mother, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "And he invested in your company when you started it. He was my first investor," I confirmed. $500,000 on a handshake. No formal pitch, no detailed business plan. He said he was investing in me, not just the idea. "That is not how business typically works," Uncle Richard pointed out, unable to hide his disapproval of such unorthodox methods. I smiled. Gerald was not typical. He believed that the best innovations come from trust and freedom, not rigid structures and endless documentation. He gave me that initial funding and told me to build something meaningful. His only conditions were that I maintain control of the company and that I use a portion of any profits to help others. "The foundation you established last year," my father said, nodding with understanding. "The one focused on tech education in underserved communities. That was part of your agreement with Cleany." "Yes," I acknowledged, surprised that he knew about it, though I would have done it anyway. Gerald showed me that success creates responsibility. Madison, who had been researching on her phone throughout this exchange, looked up with wide eyes. According to Forbes, Klein Dynamics is projected to reach $3 billion in valuation by next quarter. There are rumors of an IPO. She stared at me. "You named your company after him." "It seemed appropriate," I said simply. "His philosophy is the foundation of everything we do. But why keep all of this?" "So," Private Aunt Pamela asked, gesturing vaguely toward my modest attire, "you could be living in a penthouse, driving luxury cars, enjoying the best of everything." I considered how to explain a mindset so different from the one that dominated this table. When Gerald gave me this watch, he told me something I will never forget. 10-year-old Madison Clark crouched beneath the curved staircase of the Martha's Vineyard estate. The cold marble smelled of lemon polish and money. Rain scent drifted through the cracked patio door, mixing with leaf rustle outside the tall windows. Through polished rails she watched her mother glide into the ballroom. Diamonds flashing like ice, pearls whispering against silk. The orchestra rose. Madison pressed her homemade LED bracelet against her wrist. Its faint pulse glowed warmer than every chandelier bulb combined. 24 years later, she sat at the Thanksgiving table in the same house, wearing the same wrist, still glowing. Every fork scraped bone china like an accusation. Aunt Pamela lifted a delicate eyebrow. Madison could read the question. Why the thrift store sweater? Why the scuffed sneakers? Why no trust fund shimmer? She felt the silence stretch, tighter than violin strings. Her father cleared his throat. "You turned down the penthouse. Your mother offered to buy the building outright." He waited, as if expecting an apology. Madison traced the watch face. Simple steel, unbranded, scratched from a decade of coding marathons. Gerald's watch. Gerald, the investor. Nobody here had met because he wore overalls and drank diner coffee. $500,000 from a handshake. No pitch deck, no projections, just a quiet man who saw code where others saw risk. Aunt Pamela leaned in. "According to Forbes, Klein Dynamics is projected at $3 billion by next quarter. IPO rumors everywhere. You still bike to work." Madison smiled. Subway, actually. The room exhaled surprise, then disbelief. The chandelier flickered. Shadows danced across silver bowls of cranberry sauce. Uncle Richard adjusted his gold cufflinks. "The federal modernization contract. That was you." Madison nodded. "We'll save taxpayers $12 billion over 10 years while cutting wait times in half." She could almost hear calculators humming behind every set of manicured brows. The same minds that once told her to marry well, network better, dress to impress, now wondered how the girl beneath the staircase built a silent empire. Her father set down his glass. Quiet, settled like dust. He studied her face not as a daughter to be corrected, but as a peer to be understood. "Gerald," he said slowly. He believed trust outranks spreadsheets. Madison lifted the watch. He said value isn't proven by what you display. It's proven by what you quietly carry when no one is watching. Around the table, eyes dropped to their own reflections. Rolex, Patek, Cartier, suddenly heavier than expected. A cousin whispered, "So, why do you keep this private?" Madison's gaze drifted to the window. Dusk painted sky lavender. Somewhere in that hush, rain began tapping glass. "Because worth that needs announcing isn't worth it all." The chandelier dimmed. Candle flames took over. In their flicker, every face softened. For the first time, Madison felt her parents' respect settle over her like a handmade blanket. Quiet, warm, and finally enough. "I prefer to keep a low profile," I explained. "Our work speaks for itself. But surely now, with this level of success, you will upgrade your lifestyle." Aunt Pamela pressed, still seemingly unable to comprehend my choices. "Perhaps a nicer apartment at least." I smiled politely. "I like where I live. It is convenient and has everything I need." Gerald lived in the same modest house for 30 years, even as his net worth grew to billions. He taught me that excess consumption rarely correlates with increased happiness. "So, you just work all the time?" Madison asked her tone, suggesting she found the concept depressing. "I work on things that matter to me," I clarified. "But I also travel red extensively, volunteer, and spend time with friends who value me for who I am, not what I own." "My life is very full in the foundation," my father asked. "Tell us more about that." I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. This was something I was truly proud of. The Klein Foundation for Technological Equity. We provide comprehensive tech education and mentorship to students from under-resourced communities, full scholarships, equipment, internships, and ongoing support. Our first cohort of 50 students is halfway through the program. They are extraordinary. 50 students, Uncle Richard said. That seems modest for someone of your means. We are just getting started, I explained. The program is intensive and personalized. We want to refine our approach before expanding, but our 10-year plan is to reach 10,000 students annually across the country. 10,000 lives changed, my father mused. That is a significant legacy, more significant than any possession could be. I agreed. Gerald understood that his greatest pride wasn't in the companies he built, but in the people he helped develop, the opportunities he created. As coffee concluded, and the family began to move toward the library for after-tea drinks, I noticed a distinct change in how people were interacting with me. There was a new difference in their manner, a recalibration of my position within the family hierarchy. It was exactly what I had always wanted to avoid, being valued for my bank account rather than my character. Spencer Lang sidled up to me as we walked through the hallway lined with family portraits. "I feel like I need to completely reassess everything I thought I knew about you," he admitted. "All this time I was pitying you, thinking you could not afford the lifestyle the rest of us enjoy. And it turns out you could buy and sell most of us several times over." I stopped and turned to face him directly. "That is exactly why I do not discuss my company's valuation or my personal finances, Spencer Lang. I do not want to be treated differently based on my net worth. It is the least interesting thing about me." He looked genuinely perplexed. "But is not that what we all want? Recognition of our success, acknowledgement of our achievements. I get all the recognition I need from seeing our platform make a difference for the businesses that use it," I told him. "From watching our foundation students thrive. From knowing that Gerald would be proud of what I have built." Spencer Lang glanced down at my watch, then back at my face. "I think I have a lot to learn from you, Madison Clark." For the first time that evening, his words seemed completely sincere. The family had migrated to the library, a wood-paneled room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather armchairs, and a well-stocked bar. Conversations had splintered into smaller groups, though I noticed I was now being included in discussions that would have previously excluded me. Uncle Richard was suddenly interested in my thoughts on market trends. Aunt Pamela wanted to introduce me to her friend who ran a charitable foundation. Even Justin, who had barely acknowledged my existence at previous gatherings, was asking about potential investment opportunities. The crystal glass trembles against my teeth. Ice cracks like knuckles. A single pop in the hushed bar. Same amber eyes. Same rebellion I had once swallowed whole, my father whispers. His words ride the whiskey's heat down to my chest. Wait. What? My startup's first investment. A mystery donor. Anonymous. The signature that saved everything when banks laughed me off. I had buried that name, he says. Watched you fight dragons I once ran from. Wearing a suit that fit you like borrowed armor. Thunder inside my heart. The rain scent of Martha's Vineyard summers floods back. The way fear smelled on the porch when I told them I wouldn't join Sterling Capital. His hands shake now. 2 fingers of scotch glow like molten gold between us. You were right about building something honest. I just couldn't confess I was already holding the scaffolding. Every lonely midnight, every ramen dinner, every grin through investor rejection. He saw, he paid, he stayed silent. Dad? The word crackles like dry leaves. My throat burns. He lifts his glass. To the war we both waged in shadows. To choosing silence over savior complexes. To watching you become everything I hoped yet never had words for. We sit in the hush. Ice melts. The world tilts. The struggle I'd thought was mine alone rewinds. Becomes a duet written in invisible ink. Outside, the first fat drops of city rain drum against the window. Inside, old secrets settle like dust finally allowed to land. My glass catches the lamplight, liquid gold rippling with questions I never knew to ask. The storm sirens bleed into the night like a slow scream. Rain taps the pane in Morse code only I can feel. He leans forward, elbows on mahogany, voice low. One more thing came across my desk today. A folder, plain manila, edges curled from travel. Slides it across with the reverence you give a loaded gun. I flip it open. The paper inside smells like toner and betrayal. A server lease renewal, my own logo watermarked across the header. Signature forged, mine, in scarlet ink fresh as a wound. Dad's fingers drum once, twice, stop. Someone inside Sterling Capital paid to ghost your lease. Lightning forks outside, a flashbulb over Manhattan. He watches my pupils widen, then shrink. Question is, do you let them finish the frame job? I taste copper where I bit my lip. Every late-night code sprint, every investor sneer, floods back, but this time the spotlight scorches instead of soothes. He refills his glass, cubes crack like old bones. I kept receipts, encrypted. He taps the folder's spine. Your move, Madison. Silence pools thicker than scotch. The city holds its breath. Sirens fade to a single heartbeat. I reach for the folder, close my fist on the edge of the lie. Outside, rain shifts to hail, drumming the roof like urgent typewriters. Inside, the watch on my wrist ticks louder. Each second a countdown I didn't know I was running. Dad exhales. Whatever you decide, know one truth. He lifts his glass, eyes steady over crystal. I raised a warrior, not a shield. I flip the folder shut. The scarlet forgery winks once in the lamplight. Invitation or accusation, I can't tell. I stand. He follows suit, the room shrinking to the space between our heartbeats. Let's see who blinks first, I whisper. Spencer Lang slides onto the velvet bench, elbows suddenly too loud, too human. He smells like rain-damp wool and something sharper. Shame. Madison, can we talk? His voice cracks under chandelier frost. I nod. He exhales, the city siren outside muffled by glass. I was cruel, he says, each word peeling a layer of lacquered ego. I mocked your subway rides, called your thrift store dress a costume. Success doesn't ride in a six-figure car, I argued, until tonight. He stops. A bead of scotch trembles on his lip. Why am I apologizing? Because I finally see value isn't balance sheet green. Grace Sterling glides nearer, diamond studs flashing like warning lights. She places a trembling hand on my shoulder, her perfume the same gardenia my childhood bedroom once swallowed. Darling, your father's watching. I feel Manhattan's million eyes through rain-streaked glass. Richard Sterling leans against the bar, crystal clinking secrets. His smile is gentle, yet unreadable, approval or plot. I rise. The marble floor vibrates with subway memory, rumbling under designer heels. Spencer stands too, the space between us shrinking to one heartbeat. Talk tomorrow? He asks. I answer with a small nod. Grace flutters a grateful smile, then steers me toward the foyer where candlelight stutters. Rain sharpens to hail, drumming the rooftop like urgent typewriters. Somewhere, a violin loops backward, swallowing applause. In that suspended note, I realize every victory, every line of code, every midnight proof was bankrolled by the parents I vowed to outrun. The folders on Dad's desk, server leases, venture terms, snap into focus. A velvet cage disguised as opportunity. My chest tightens. Have I built a fortress? Or painted my own walls? I breathe in petrichor from Spencer's coat, exhale old definitions. Tomorrow I walk into Sterling Capital's glass tower, on foot, subway token cool in my palm. Let them see what status cannot buy. The second hand on Gerald's watch halts. Tick. Nothing. My phone quivers. Unknown number, one flash, metal racks, cobalt fire, no caption, heart slam. Did my foundation burn into scandal? Rain scent drifts through the pane like wet chalk. I step away from Mom's pleading eyes, thumb hovering. Call back? Silence answers. Spencer waits in the hallway, coat dripping. He mouths, "Everything okay?" I swallow. Define okay. Grace Sterling approaches softly, pearls clicking like ice cubes. Darling, the driver's here. Her perfume is gardenia again. Funeral sweet. I picture servers melting, data vanishing like fog. My code, my freedom, could be cinders. Downstairs, city hail drums the awning. Each ping says, run. I tighten the thrift blazer, subway token cold against palm. One path, glass tower tomorrow. One question. Did status just devour the story I wrote to escape it? When it came time to leave, I ordered another Uber declining offers from several relatives to drive me to the city. My father walked me to the door while we waited for the car to arrive. You have given them all something to think about tonight, he observed, myself included. That was never my intention, I said. I just wanted to be treated like a person, not a bank account, positive or negative. He nodded thoughtfully. Gerald Klein's greatest legacy may not be his companies or even his watches, but what he taught you about the true meaning of success. He placed a hand on my shoulder. I would like to see your office sometime, meet your team, learn more about what you are building. I would like that, I said, genuinely pleased by the suggestion. How about next week I could give you the tour, introduce you to everyone? It is a date, he agreed as my Uber pulled up, and Madison Clark keep wearing that watch. It is exactly where it belongs. As I settled into the back seat of the car, I glanced down at Gerald's timepiece, thinking about how objects like people contain multitudes. To most of my family, the watch had transformed me from a struggling entrepreneur to a serious player in a single moment of recognition. But to me, it remained what it had always been, a connection to a mentor who had shown me that the truest measure of success was not what you accumulated, but what you contributed. 3 weeks after the revelatory family dinner, I found myself sitting in my office overlooking Madison Avenue. The space was modern but understated with glass walls, clean lines, and functional furniture. No expensive art adorned the walls, just enlarged photographs of our team members working with clients, visual reminders of the real people impacted by our technology. The visit from my father had gone better than I could have hoped. He had arrived early, taken the full tour, met with my executive team, and asked thoughtful questions about our technology and business model. Lights dim. The rooftop skyline, moments ago awash in celebratory amber, now stutters under science security strobes. Rain scent drifts from the gutters, sharp, metallic. Madison Clark spins, heart racing. Her father isn't speaking. Only a hollow hologram flickers in her AR glasses. Pause. One breath. Behind the glass, Richard Sterling stands motionless, tears cutting silver lines through the reflection. His hand trembles as he signs the takeover papers. Console lights hiss. In the corridor beyond the soundproof wall, leaf rustle of the potted ficus is the only natural sound. Madison's own watch ticks against her pulse. The hologram lifts its chin, gentle smile programmed by her code, consolation soft as air. You're right, kiddo. Some cultures can't be bought, only archived. She rips the glasses off. Rain hits bare skin, cold pinpricks. Security strobes freeze the rooftop into a silent film. Behind her stands only the glass, only the man she thought she had convinced. She steps toward the wall, fingers brushing chilled acrylic. Inside, Richard Sterling lowers the pen, eyes fixed on her. Madison's lips part. No words. His palm flattens to the glass. Heat on cold. For a moment she reads nothing, then everything. Pride, regret, surrender. She exhales. A faint steam circle on the window between them. Madison places her hand directly over his. 2 prints, no barrier. She whispers against the glass, clear enough for his ears only, I never asked to inherit your kingdom. I asked to be your daughter. A single nod from him. Small, almost unseen. Papers stay signed. Deal goes through. Yet in the reflection, Madison sees it. His fingers curl, slow, deliberate, until thumb meets index. A silent promise. She nods back. Rain eases, strobes fade. The city below hums again, alive, unafraid to change. She pockets the AR glasses, turns toward the stairwell. Down the narrow steps, subway tiles glisten. At street level, the night feels wide, avenues stretching like open code. Behind her, the tower stands, its neon crown still blinking cyan. Madison walks away, coat collar high, Gerald's watch ticking steady on her wrist. No crown needed, only time. Zoe entered my office nervously, a 16-year-old with bright eyes and a determined set to her shoulders. She had applied to our Foundation's mentorship program with an impressive proposal for using data analytics to address food insecurity in urban neighborhoods. Miss Hayes, she said, extending her hand formally, thank you so much for meeting with me. Madison Clark, please, I corrected, gently gesturing for her to take a seat. I was impressed by your application, Zoe. Your approach to mapping food deserts using multiple data points was innovative. She brightened visibly at the praise. My family relies on food assistance programs, so I know firsthand how challenging access can be. I want to create solutions, not just identify problems. As she outlined her ideas, I was struck by her passion and clarity of purpose. She reminded me of myself at that age, though she faced economic barriers I had never experienced. This was exactly the kind of student Gerald had wanted to support someone with the vision and drive to create meaningful change. How would you feel about being the first participant in our new direct mentorship program? I asked when she finished her presentation. You would work directly with our data science team one afternoon a week, developing your project with professional guidance. There's a stipend involved. Of course, her eyes widened. Are you serious? That would change everything for me. Completely serious, I assured her. Your idea has real potential. With the right support and resources, it could help thousands of families. As we discussed the details, I was conscious of Gerald's watch on my wrist, a tangible reminder of the responsibility that came with success. In helping Zoe develop her project, I was honoring his legacy in the most meaningful way possible by creating opportunity for the next generation of problem solvers. After Zoe left practically floating with excitement, I called my father to tell him about the new mentorship initiative. He listened with interest, then surprised me with his response. I would like to contribute to the foundation, he said. Not just financially, though, that too, if needed, but with time. I have experience that might be valuable to these young entrepreneurs. That would be wonderful, I told him, genuinely moved by the offer. The students would benefit enormously from your business expertise, and I suspect I would benefit from their fresh perspectives, he replied. Your dinner revelation did more than just surprise the family, Madison Clark. It made me reevaluate how I measure success both in myself and others. I want to be part of building something that lasts beyond balance sheets and property portfolios. As we finalized plans for his involvement, I thought about how one evening, one moment of truth, had created ripples that continued to expand outward. My decision to live, according to Gerald's philosophy, had influenced not just my own life, but increasingly the lives of those around me. Later that evening, as I rode the subway home, I studied the diverse faces of my fellow passengers. A construction worker still in his work clothes, a nurse in scrubs, students with backpacks, a woman in a business suit, similar to my own, each with their own story, their own measure of what mattered. Gerald had moved through the world this way, seeing people rather than positions, value rather than valuables. In my apartment that night, I took off the watch and held it in my palm, feeling its weight and significance. It had become far more than a timepiece to me. It was a compass guiding my decisions and priorities, a reminder that true wealth lay not in what you possessed, but in what you contributed, not in how you were perceived, but in how you lived your values. The watch would never hang in a museum or be stored in a safe. It would continue to accompany me through board meetings and foundation events, through family dinners and quiet evenings. It would mark the hours of my life as it had marked Gerald's, a witness to the creation of something meaningful and lasting. As I prepared for bed, my phone chimed with a message from Spencer Lang. He had just finished his first solo teaching session at the coding program and was exhilarated by the experience. I think I finally understand what Gerald meant about impact over image, he wrote. Thank you for showing me a different way to measure success. I smiled as I replied, thinking about how authentic connections and genuine purpose were the true markers of a life well lived. The watch had caught my father's eye at that fateful dinner, but what truly mattered was the philosophy it represented. The understanding that our worth is not determined by our wealth, but by our actions and their impact on others. Have you ever had a moment when something you owned revealed more about you than you intended? Or a time when others' perceptions of you changed dramatically based on new information? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of authentic success resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more stories about finding true value in a world obsessed with appearances. Remember that the most precious things we own are not measured by their price tags, but by the meaning they hold in our hearts. Thank you for listening, and until next time, may you always know your true worth beyond any number in your bank account.